Well, good evening. This is Map Show night, and it's Wednesday evening. And as clockwork, we are here 7 p.m. every Wednesday and Thursday. And it's just wonderful to have you joining us, whether you're watching the recording or joining a live show. This is a great investment in terms of your future. So tonight we're going to have an exciting chat. We're going to talk about a topic which is really exciting for me, because I'm going to share some stories with you that are kind of out of the ordinary. And I trust that you're going to find them very interesting. And I'd love to hear what your story is, because everyone who is part of Map for Life has a unique map story. Your journey with Map for Life would have started somewhere. And I'm going to share with you a couple stories this evening. And the first one I want to share with you, I heard on the 6th, I think it was the 6th of March, 2021. And this particular story has a link back to the very early days of Map for Life. So I'm going to share a little bit with you regarding that. One of our trainers, or now trainers, at that particular stage was just someone interested in Map for Life, had a brother who attended training in 2001. I did training in Cape Town, and their brother attended, and of course he was very excited about what he'd learned and shared it with the family, told them all about it. And sadly he passed away at an early age. And in 2016 his sister was visiting South Africa from the United Kingdom and decided to go and explore a second-hand bookstore in Cape Town. Now, before I tell you the details of this particular story, or maybe I should just tell you right now, is that while she was busy exploring the second-hand bookstore, she came across a 2003 copy of Map for Life. Now, understand this was 2016, and she found a copy of a 2003 book. Of course, she had heard about this book from her brother. She had also come across papers while she was going through all these things after the funeral and discovered things linked to Map for Life. And so she bought the copy and connected with us. And today she is one of our trainers, and she finds herself in the United Kingdom, in a city that I'm sure you know and have heard about, the City of London. And so we're very excited to have Heather part of Map for Life. But what was interesting is in March of 2021, the lockdown restrictions had recently been lifted, and I went to do a training in Cape Town. And while I was there on the Friday evening, after the first, just before the training would commence, I noticed that there was an incredibly beautiful sunset that was taking place. I could see it in part from the place that I was staying, but I decided I wanted to get a really nice photograph. So I got in the car and I rushed off to get to a better place, and I just couldn't find the better place. And eventually I used that not the old-fashioned map, but I took out my GPS and I looked for a beach area which I knew would be completely unobstructed. There would be nothing in front of me but water and the sunset. And I saw an unusual name, a beach called Bikini Beach. And so I rushed in that direction. And as I was driving, the wind began to blow. I mean, it was those typical Cape Town winds. I could see that people could hardly stand. Fire engines came racing past. They blocked the road up ahead, so I couldn't go the direction that I was wanting to go because there was a big veld fire that had started. I followed my nose in the direction of what I could remember where this beach was, and I arrived at the beach just in time to take a photograph of the setting sun. But of course, it was windy, it was beginning to rain, it wasn't very good at that stage. And I decided after taking this photograph that I would turn around and take a photograph of the area that I was in so that I could mark the spot from where I'd taken this photo. And as I turned around, I saw one of the pictures from a vision board that I'd put together way back in 1991. It was of a Mercedes-Benz, one of those cars where the door goes zzz, and it sucks in. It doesn't close click like those other cars. It was perched on top of a stand above the shops. And I took a photograph of this place, got back into my car to get warm, went back to the training. And the next morning, Heather spoke to the group at 10 a.m. and she shared her story of how she got to find Map for Life. And you know something? She found her copy of the 2003 Map for Life in a bookstore called Bikini Beach Bookstore. And the Bikini Beach Bookstore was in the photograph that I took from the place where I'd taken a photo of the sunset. I mean, stories like this that you just can't put, you can't make them up. It was an amazing moment for me to realize that when I was rushing to go and take a photograph of the sunset, that I would instead take a far more important photograph, and it would be a photograph of the very place where the person who was going to be speaking the next day would tell us her story from. And so there are things like this, testimonies of this nature, that have happened over the last 20 years. But last night, I heard another interesting Map for Life story. And I was meeting with a few people online, people interested in doing our Train the Trainer program. And Sir Greg joined us. Now, Sir Greg hasn't been knighted in the United Kingdom. No, he's not. But that's his nickname. People know him as Sir Greg here in South Africa. And Sir Greg, many years ago, back in the year 2006, was working for, I understand, a waste disposal company. And on one day, they were busy collecting someone's garbage. And there on the heap of garbage was a book. And in that moment, he decided you can't throw away a book. A book is too precious. And so he picked up the book and kept it for himself. And this particular book was called Map for Life, the 2006 Map for Life book. And he was sharing with us last night that that particular book, after using it, it changed the trajectory of his life. And today he's involved in youth ministry. He's doing incredible work in a place called Alexandra. It was really exciting to hear that story. And it just makes me wonder, what is your story? Earlier this week, I was speaking to somebody from Zimbabwe, and his name was Gregory. So not to be confused with Sir Gregory here in South Africa. This was Gregory from Zimbabwe. And he was telling me that he picked up, or not, he got a copy of Map for Life when he was attending a training course, another kind of training course. And one of the participants gave him a copy of Map for Life in 2005. And if anybody's been to Zimbabwe, you will know you can't always get everything that you want when you want it. And he understood this. And so he's been using his 2005 copy again and again because he was wise and used pencil, and he just erases and updates his master action plan. Fascinating to meet Gregory, And we're going to be starting a mastery course on this week, Tuesday. So Gregory and I are going to get to know each other really well. And Greg is a lecturer at a seminary in Zimbabwe, and it's just going to be an exciting experience to engage with him, knowing full well of the leaders that he's going to be connecting with. It would be so wonderful to know who the person was that shared Map for Life with him back in 2005. But I know a story and how Zimbabwe began to, or how Zimbabwe was introduced to Map for Life in 2003. And this story that I'm going to share with you started when I got a phone call from someone in Botswana. And I hope he doesn't mind. His name was Stuart Beverly. He was an ex-Zimbabwean. I say ex-Zimbabwean, that's not true. He was living, his home was in Zimbabwe, but he was living and working in Botswana. And while he was there, he ordered 100 copies of Map for Life in the year 2002. I was so excited to get this order from Botswana. I knew that Botswana was going to be changed forever. What I didn't know is that there was going to be a deviation, and that was that one of these books would actually end up in Zimbabwe. And the way that it got there was a man by the name of David Vincent. He passed away, sadly, in April of 2006. David Vincent went to Botswana to do training. He had a training company. And while he was there, he was invited to attend Stuart Beverly's home, where he was having a Bible study. And so he went on a Wednesday evening, like many of our mappers do on a Wednesday night. They attend Bible study or something of that kind, maybe a home group. And while he was there, Stuart gave David a copy of the 2002 Map for Life book. In May 2003, David invited me to come and do training with a large group of people in Zimbabwe. It was at the Sheraton Hotel. And while I was there, he introduced me to two people. And he said, you know, these two people, young people, a young man and a young woman, he said, I see incredible potential in these two people. They can take Map for Life somewhere. And he introduced me to Eric Zinyengere and Sandra Kawodza. And both Eric and Sandra are still engaged with Map for Life today, carrying on the baton. What was interesting is in December 2005, David, because he had been a presenter on Radio 1 in Zimbabwe, he had access to these recording studios, and he recorded the audio book for Map for Life. So if you listen to the audio book of Map for Life, if you do the 20-day program, that is David Vincent's voice. And he came and gave it to me in December 2005. He visited me at my home, and he gave me the CD, and he said, maybe you'll have use for this one day. Little did I know that just 4 months later, David would be no longer. So today we still have a piece of his legacy. You know, there are so many stories, so many interesting stories that have begun. And I know that your story is busy unfolding, but I would love to know how it started. Where did you get your first copy of Map for Life? Did you buy it in a bookstore? Did somebody give it to you? Did you get it as a Christmas present? You know, I was just meeting with Peter Darrell this morning, and I often say that Peter Darrell, to my mind, is the first person ever to buy a copy of Map for Life. And he used it on the 16th of December. In fact, it was an early Christmas gift. His wife bought him an early Christmas gift. He opened it. He couldn't wait until the 25th of December. He opened it on the 16th of December. And while going through that book, he wrote down something interesting. When he was focused on his spiritual area, he wrote these words: find the meaning of life. Just on that following Sunday morning, he opened the Sunday Times, the newspaper. And when he opened the newspaper, It just so happened that on the page that the newspaper opened was an advert right in the center of the page. And that advert had the words, "Find the meaning of life." I mean, you can imagine if you've just written those words down a day or two earlier and you see it in the newspaper. Yes, he saw this as a sign, something that he should do. So he registered for the course that was being advertised. In March of 2000, he attended that course. And today he tells everyone that listens to his story that his life was changed as a result of the message and the course that he participated in. Wonderful stories that come from all different places. I'm going to tell you one other story, and that is of a young man. Maybe I shouldn't say a young man. Let's first start with Dr. Yona. Dr. Yona is a long-time friend of Map for Life, and he's one of our partners, and he hails from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. And he visited South Africa in December 1999 as well. And he bought 2 copies of Map for Life while he was in Wordsworth bookstore at the V&A waterfront in Cape Town. So if you've ever visited Cape Town, I'm sure you would have been or seen or know of the V&A waterfront, the Victoria and Alfred waterfront for our UK visitors. And he bought those 2 books and went back to Tanzania. In 2006, he decided, he heard that we were looking for people to engage with Map for Life in other countries, and he felt that Tanzania had been left out. He put up his hand and says, "I'm ready to introduce Map for Life in Tanzania." And the story began. And he began to share Map for Life with young people. And I love the way that Dr. Yona does it. He walks up to young people and he says to them, he says, "You look like somebody who's going somewhere. Do you mind if I walk alongside you for a while?" And through that process, he has mentored many young people. And one of those young people's name is Alois. And Alois was in his final year at school. And Dr. Yona went and delivered a talk, and he spoke about dreams. Of course, Map for Life is all about dreams. And he talked about dreams. And at the end of his talk that he delivered at the final sort of gathering of that year students, Alois came up to Dr. Yona and said, "I have a dream." As I say that, it sounds like Martin Luther King, but he said, "I have a dream." And Dr. Yona said, "Tell me about it." And he began to explain what he wanted to do, and it was to study in one of the top universities in America so that he could come back and transform Tanzania. And I hope he's listening this evening, because that was his goal. And he didn't have any money. So Dr. Yona said, "Have you applied to any universities?" And Alois said, "No, I haven't." So he said, "Well, why don't you? It costs nothing to apply." Alois filled in an application. He applied, and guess what? He got 100% scholarship. He needed an air ticket. He needed a visa. All of these things happened because he began to do what he could with what he had. Later, Alois would get on an airplane for the very first time, fly to the United States of America, attend Cornell College, get 2 degrees in 2 years, move on to do a second 2 degrees in the next 2 years. I mean, a story that is completely unbelievable for somebody whose destiny was to sell sugarcane on the streets of a rural village where he came from. He was able to follow and pursue his dream. I think of visiting Kenya in November 2006 and being invited by Dorothy. Not only Dorothy, but Dorothy and Joyce. Joyce from Uganda, Dorothy from Kampala, Uganda, and Dorothy from Nairobi in Kenya, together, they put together a training event in the capital city of Nairobi. I was invited to do a Map for Life training there. And we went through a 1-day training session, followed by a 3-day train the trainer program. At the end of that period, I almost didn't need an aeroplane to fly back to South Africa. I was so excited about the potential and what could happen in the country of Kenya. I came back to South Africa and I sit and waited and watched. And it seemed as if nothing was happening. There were no stories coming from Kenya. I was hoping for big things. But in 2013, I will never forget the morning at the Park Inn Hotel in Sandton City, Johannesburg. Dorothy invited me for a cup of tea to tell me what had happened as a result of introducing Map for Life in Nairobi. And she shared a story of a young girl who was directionless, who was at a point in her life where she wanted to give up. And Dorothy took her through the MAP process in December 2010, if I recall correctly. And in that moment, she wrote down in her map that she wanted to be an actor. The very next year, she was able to visit and attend Yale University to pursue a career in acting. She studied drama. 2.5 years later, she had finally crystallized her purpose statement. And after doing that, just 9 days after doing it, writing a purpose statement, and also, by the way, one of her goals was to go on holiday in New Orleans. And so 9 days later, she auditioned for a movie called 12 Years a Slave. She won the part. And what was amazing is that the movie was going to be recorded or filmed in the very place that she wanted to go on holiday. Her idea was to go on holiday for 2 weeks. She ended up spending 6 weeks in that place in Louisiana, busy shooting the movie. I mean, these are things that just don't make sense. But I've come to learn that when you write something down, when you put it on paper, you somehow begin a process that manifests in a dream coming true. Not only did she play a role in that movie, but she was awarded an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. And many people in Africa will know who that is. Yes, Lupita Nyong'o. It was her, when introduced to Map for Life, had the freedom to write down the true desires of her heart. And today she is pursuing that dream. And she's done many movies. The Queen of Katwe, one of the movies done here in Africa. She's been part of Black Panther, and my family and I were privileged to be able to attend the premiere here in South Africa. I share these stories with you because you too have a story, and your story is unfolding. We don't always see the end of the story at the beginning. Most people want to see the end immediately. They want to see the results of their efforts. But when you sow a seed, that seed, when it has been sown in good soil, will germinate. It will grow to be a full tree. It will become fruitful. And those fruits will bear more, will have more seed. And those seeds, some of them will germinate and become trees with fruit. And the seed that you sow will one day be a forest. And just like last night, I heard of a man whose life was transformed when he picked up a book off a heap of garbage. I can say tonight, I had absolutely nothing to do with the change in his life other than being obedient to the vision and dream that I was given. Everything else has happened by what I could now attribute to divine intervention. What are the chances of working for a garbage collection company, picking up garbage, finding a book, taking it, making the wise decision to pick up that book and to begin to work in it, and as a consequence have a life changed, and not only a life change, but get involved in a project where the lives of others have been touched and transformed. That for me made my day. And I wanted to share that story with you this evening. I see there's some comments coming through this evening, and I appreciate that, and I'm going to address those comments in a moment. So let's just take a quick break. I'm going to have some water. You do what you need to do, but I'm going to address those comments from Ruth and Rion and Jane. Lovely to have you joining us this evening. So let's just take a short break, and I will come right back after Dorothy. Let's get Dorothy just to share something with us. I'm going to ask Dorothy just to tell us a little bit of the story that I have just shared with you now.
Habari gani, Nadi. My name is Dorothy Nyong'o from Kisumu, Kenya. I started using Map for Life in 2006 when Glen McQuirk came to launch it in Nairobi. For me, Map for Life is a life tool that unlocks a very fuzzy future and makes it crystal clear about what your purpose is meant to be. I remember taking my daughter Lupita Nyong'o through Map for Life in December 2009. And by the end of the exercise, it became crystal clear to her what she was meant to be and to do. She then went on to do a master's in acting at Yale, and soon after graduation went on to star in a significant movie, 12 Years a Slave, and went on to win an Academy Award in 2014. My favorite leadership quote is by Miles Monroe. Purpose is when you know and understand what you were born to accomplish. November 10th, 2014. Be mapped.
So much, Dorothy. What a wonderful story to hear, and I can never get enough of that story. And maybe later on this evening I will share Lupita's the award that Lupita received, that particular ceremony. I always find it interesting because she ends with a very powerful statement that applies to each of us. So welcome, Rion. Lovely to have you all the way from Lydenburg. For those of you not familiar with South Africa, Lydenburg is near the Mozambican border. When I say near, it's 100 or more kilometers from the Mozambique border, but it's in a mountainous area and can be quite chilly during the winter time. So Rion, great to have you joining us from the cold, dark part of South Africa. And Ruth, lovely to have you joining us, as well as Jane. So nice to have you joining us from Uganda, Jane, and Ruth from Cape Town. Ruth has just reminded me that she first started attending Map for Life events. I used to host a Map for Life talk at Zoo Lake in Johannesburg, and Ruth came to one of those sessions. In fact, not one, many of those sessions on a Saturday morning. And of course, at this time of the year, it was really cold. And I remember meeting Bruce Fordyce on one of the occasions. And Bruce Fordyce is someone who Peter Darrell, who I mentioned earlier this evening, knows very well. And the reason they know each other well is because they are both passionate about running. And of course, Peter Darrell put together a book called Map for Running, which is a great tool for anyone who is interested in starting running, or whether you're a seasoned runner or a veteran. I think there's nothing better than having a master action plan for your running. Maybe you're the kind of runner who would like to run every marathon on the planet. Why not? Why not set that as a goal? Go and run the New York Marathon, run the Boston Marathon, run the London Marathon, or whatever other marathons there are around the world. I'm sure there must be many interesting ones that can not only take you to interesting places, but can also enable you to meet interesting people. Maybe the next business partner you could meet on a journey like that. So Map for Running is a great tool. You'll find it under our store on the website. Get yourself a copy. I think it'll be a great tool to kickstart your running season. Why wait until the 1st of January 2024 when you can start a new year right now, a new year resolution? What a good time to do so, especially those of you in the southern hemisphere. Spring is coming. Get yourself ready. Start running. So when spring is here, you can enjoy a great fit period. Ruth was just talking about the value and the importance of having a vision board as well. And I think just earlier today, I was having a conversation in one of our MAP cafes, and we were talking about the idea of formal education. Now, when I say formal education, immediately you have an idea in your mind. Okay, formal education, let me remind you, is somebody else's plan for your future. Let me say that again. Formal education is someone else's plan for your brain and your future. When you are educated by someone else in a formal process, you follow a course for a desired outcome that they have. And that outcome is to be able to serve a corporate environment that exists, and you become an employee. In Map for Life, we talk about being a deployee, somebody who is set free. And to do that kind of education, it's not a formal process. It's a formatted process that you decide, and it is destiny defined or destiny driven. So you need to have clear vision, know where you're going, and then seek out experiences that are aligned with that destiny. So it's an experiential education in a sense. So read all the books that you can on the subject of your passion. This form of education is exciting, it's enjoyable, it's fun, because every subject that you choose is one that you've chosen. It's not a mandatory program that somebody else insists you should have access to. It's something that you have chosen. So maybe formal education has the ability to teach you to think differently. It puts you under a lot of pressure, and there's lots of things that we can talk about that are valuable. But somehow, people who have destiny-driven experiential education develop, in a sense, an academy of their own that is aligned with their passion. And maybe that's what you and I need to be doing. Let's go and seek out the kind of books that are going to inspire us. Let's look for training opportunities where we can go and learn from others. Let's find ourselves mentors that can guide us, people who've been down the road that we're planning to travel before. I think that is something that could really help us break out of that system you might find yourself trapped in. I know Rian spoke last week about blazing a trail or being a trailblazer. And so I'm hoping that you've listened to his talk. If not, the recording is on our channel. And so you can go and take a listen to Rian's talk from Wednesday, and also Terence's talk on the triple R or the 3 R's that was done on Thursday last week. Ruth, it's been wonderful having you and Rian join me. I just want to read what Rian has said. Rian, I think you're going to have to wait a long time for me to join you on those trails. But I will certainly be one of those people that will walk that trail while you run it. And I'll be happy to stand there to give you water when you run past. Okay, so I'll be a good supporter. But jokes aside, I think we could actually start talking about walking the beaches of the world, walking the bushes around the world, walking the mountaintops of the world. Why not dream? Let's have a new place to go every year. You will be amazed at how many people in your own country, wherever your country might be, have not seen the tourist attractions that are right there in their country. Ruth is from Cape Town. There's a mountain. It's called Table Mountain. The world knows about Table Mountain, but believe it or not, there are people that are living at the foot of Table Mountain that have not been up the mountain. What an amazing situation. And there are places in South Africa that the world comes to look at. We're the number 27 country, 27th country in terms of tourism. So there are people from all over the world that visit our country to see the beautiful things that we have, and yet we have not been to see them. I remember asking a group of people in Zimbabwe once. I was speaking to an auditorium. There were about 300 people present. And I asked, who would like to travel the world? Everybody put up their hands. I don't think there was a single person who kept their hand down. And then I asked them the question, who's got a passport? And a fraction, a small fraction, probably less than 3% of the people in the room actually had a passport that they could use. And then I went on to ask, who has been to Victoria Falls? And even fewer people had been to one of the greatest tourist attractions on the planet, yet they live in that country. And so I want to ask you this evening, what is your dream? Is your dream right under your nose, perhaps? And you're so busy looking at the how that you're missing the opportunity. Rion has a great saying. He says, don't how your dreams to death. And I think many people are in that place where they're so engrossed in the how that all they're doing is sowing seeds of doubt. And doubt is the cancer of faith. And faith is the ingredient necessary to turn your dreams into reality, to take things that are invisible and make them visible. To manifest something out of nothing. That's what the purpose of faith is, because it enables you to step where no man has gone before, no woman has gone before. And I just hope that tonight you feel encouraged so that you can begin to take your step of faith. I want to just see if I can read some more comments. Maybe I should just chat briefly. I'm going to be traveling to a place called Jinja. Now, many of you might not know what I'm talking about, but Jinja is not ginger as in the color orange or the gingerbread man. No, Jinja, Jinja. I would think is the correct spelling, Jinja. And Jinja is a place 1 hour to the northeast, I believe. I need to look at a map, but I think it's to the northeast of Kampala in Uganda. And it is the source of the Western Nile. And I will be there, God willing, with a group of excited mappers as we begin to create a master action plan to shape the future, because that's what MAP is all about. So at the end of August, wherever you are, if you're from Kenya, Rwanda, even from Cameroon, we're going to be having people joining us from Cameroon in Uganda. Maybe you're in the DRC and you're just across the border. Join us. It'll be wonderful to have you. And Jane Etiquette is our MAP our mapper, our master mapper in Uganda. She's busy organizing this event. So if you are willing to travel, and Rion, you are here in South Africa, why not take a break and not have a Kit Kat, but take a break and join the trip. Travel to Uganda, have a new experience, meet new people, excited people, passionate people, people that have vision, people who have insight, people who have a dream. And Ruth, that extends to you. we can go places if we so choose. So Jane, who's on the in the live stream this evening, sorry, joining us from Uganda. She is organizing it. So Jane, I'm really excited about what you're doing, and I know that you can do something absolutely great in Uganda. I trust that we're going to see something really great going on there. Yes. So any other questions that you might have or posts you'd like to make, please do so. I'd love to deal with, or rather address them now this evening while we're here. Rion, you're on the money there. This is something really important. Actually, we talked about this morning. There's a great book called Atomic Habits, and I was in the hot seat this morning because I was sharing that there was a habit that I began this year which I didn't follow through on. Can you believe that? Well, I responded to the people that were part of the group. The reason I put this tool together, this tool called Map for Life, was because I needed it, and so do you. And there was a very important habit and a very valuable habit that I started, but circumstances changed, my schedule changed, and my habit slipped through my fingers, in a sense. And I was reminded by that this morning, and the importance of having an accountability base and to maintain that momentum, to keep building one habit at a time, building on it. And when you put small things in motion, that's why I like the book Atomic Habits. It talks about the small things. It talks about doing things that you really enjoy. The example that we used this morning was I was so happy when we had young children and their teeth appeared for the first time, because I could now teach my children how to brush their teeth, and that gave me the excuse to buy that lovely pink toothpaste. That pink toothpaste. I used to go when I would help brush their teeth, I would always take a little bit of that toothpaste on my finger because it tasted so nice. And that's how we learned to get to develop the habit of brushing our teeth. And now as adults, we don't need that that pink baby toothpaste anymore. We have the refreshing toothpaste that hopefully is managing our teeth well, so that we can last way into our later years in life with our original teeth. It all started with giving them something that they really enjoyed and liked, and maybe that's a good thing with the habit. Yes, Rian, you're absolutely right. Africa is calling. You're such a good trail runner. Why don't you start running now? You should be there. You should be in Ginger by the time I get there. Okay? I think that'll be a nice trail running experience. No, I think in the place of Ginger will be an incredible, absolutely once in a lifetime experience for you to be able to run a trail in that part of the world. Imagine the story that you could come back with. Jane, thank you for sharing. Vision without action, a walk of faith, is like a blind man who is being handed a stick to guide him away from a deep hole, but insists on walking alone. I love that, Jane. Thank you so much. You've given me some ammunition to share in one of my. I'm going to maybe even use that in one of my trainings that are coming up. there's something interesting about MAP, and maybe which I can share with you this evening. Henny, my regular participant in the MAP show on a Wednesday evening, he has translated the Map for Life gems into Afrikaans. And what I'm so encouraged by is his absolute commitment to follow through. You know, one of the things that I wrote inside the very first Map for Life book was a set of objectives. And one of the objectives was to start and finish well. Because so many people are able to start, but so few people are able to follow through and finish. And the interesting thing is, unless you finish what you start, what you started cannot start. Unless you finish what you start, the very thing that you started cannot begin its journey. So you and I need to walk up to the finish line. And I think runners know this. You know, one of the things that every runner experiences is at some place they hit what they call the wall. And yes, Rian, I know what that is. I've run to the point where my chest wants to burst. At least it feels like that. It's got this burning sensation. And if you're running with a seasoned runner, if you're running with a veteran, he just encourages you to keep going. And you know, within about a kilometer, within 5 minutes of having that experience that you think you're going to die, suddenly the second wind kicks in. And it's the territory beyond the wall that you need to become familiar with. And the people who finish things are the ones who are familiar with that territory. You know, it's never easy, but it's familiar. And they know it, they recognize it, and they just continue because they know if I just keep pushing through this, I'm going to get my second wind and I'll be able to cross the finish line well. And maybe you need to be able to cross that finish line well. Getting back to Henny writing the gems in Afrikaans, we also have gems that have been started in isiZulu. We have gems that have been started in Kiswahili, in Arabic, in Portuguese, in other languages. And you might have a language that you speak, that you are passionate about. You know, I think, Jane, in your part of the world, people also speak Kiswahili, but I also, if I remember correctly, you told me that the people in Uganda speak, well, I should say Uganda, because the language that you speak is Luganda, and the people who speak it are called Buganda. So, you know, there's a language, and Nelson Mandela, there's a quote that is attributed to him that was in an office complex that where I used to have offices many years ago. And this quote was like a mural on a wall. The wall was at least 6 meters by 4 meters in height. And there was this quote by Nelson Mandela. And it said, if you speak to someone in a language they understand, you speak to their head. But if you speak to a person in their language, their mother tongue, you speak to their heart. You see, when you speak to somebody in their language that is theirs, you get conviction, you get commitment, you get that momentum that Rian was talking about. And so I really believe that we need to start working on making Map for Life available in all languages. So if it's not represented in your language right now, this map show that we're having this evening should be in all languages. And so I invite you to step up to the plate and play your part and make Map for Life something for everyone in their mother tongue. I think that'll be really exciting. So, guys and girls, I think we have had a wonderful session. I've really enjoyed your interaction this evening. I trust that the message or the stories that I've shared with you are stories of encouragement. I know that you have a map story. I would love to hear your map story. Before I end, maybe I should just share Jane's story. Jane, I hope you don't mind. But but I was in East London in October 2019, I believe. Jane, you can correct me. You can type your message there if I'm wrong. And I was attending a conference called Faith on Fire. This conference was being run by Dr. Andre Rabert of the Faith Broadcast Network. And interestingly, he was one of the very early adopters of Map for Life back in the year 2000 already. He had a copy, and many people have received a copy of Map for Life because of his engagement with the materials and the tools that we have used. And he attributes many of the ministries that he has begun to having a clearly defined map for his life and for his business. And while I was at this conference, he saw that I was sitting in the conference, and he called me up to just share a brief message on Map for Life. And who should turn on the television in Uganda at that very moment? Of course, it was Jane. And she was listening to this message, and she said she felt like I was speaking directly to her. It wasn't long. And when I say it wasn't long, a couple of years later, Jane and I were able to meet. We connected. We went through training. And as they say, the rest is history. I've been to Uganda. We've done our first training there with a group of people to start things. And those pioneers, Eve, Faith, Ronald, Jane, and everyone else that was involved and that I met during that visit, they are the pioneers. They have started something. And I know when I visit at the end of August, Jane, exciting things are going to be happening. So guys, thank you so much for joining this evening. I'm going to, as I said, I'm going to close out with a video from Lupita, where she is receiving her Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. It's been wonderful sharing with you tonight. Please remember, every Wednesday and Thursday evening, and if you're not yet subscribed to our channel, please subscribe and ring the notification bell, because if you do that, you won't miss a single show. And we would love to invite you not just to be commenting or posting on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, but why not join us in the studio and be part of the live panel. And when I say join us in the studio, you don't have to travel to Pretoria, South Africa to do so. You'll be able to join online from any internet connection on the planet, and one day maybe from Mars. You can join us and be part of the panel and give us and share with us your insights into the message that we share. So thank you so much for joining. Have a wonderful evening further, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place.